a lot of people struggle with is how do you take everything about your offer and how do you communicate all of its value in like something really short and punchy rather than, diarrhea at the mouth, you're virusing people, or you're kind of just like not really sure what to say and what to leave out.
Welcome to Zero to Rockstar Coaching Business, the podcast for coaches that want to bring consistent clients into their orbit. I'm your host, Leanne Sear, business coach and hype woman, ready to help you step into your big deal energy and close the gap between qualifying as a coach and creating the impact, income and freedom that you know you're meant to have. Let's do this.
I am literally dancing around the room because this podcast is pure gold. I'm chatting to Emelie Sanders, who is the head honcho of Pass The Queso. She helps creators become faster copywriters by helping them know what to say and how to say it with a huge dollop of humor and just joy, basically. And if you're not on Emelie's email list, you're missing a trick because this girl is so funny that you can't help but stop the scroll. And isn't that what we want your copy to be like? We want it to stop the scroll and to help it build that connection with you. Because guess what? You're not a robot. Guess what? You're not vanilla. You're here to stand out. And Emelie is going to tell you how you can do that.
Emelie, I'm so excited that you are here on the podcast. You are incredible. I've been watching you for, I would say, pretty much all of 2024, like following everything that you've been doing. Your emails are the ones that I always open because I know that I'm going to get a giggle. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Also, I love how you just jumped in acting like we have totally not been talking for the last 20 minutes.
I know. How are you doing, darling? You're coming to us all the way from Texas.
Yes, which you have been to recently, apparently.
I love Texas. I want to make an annual visit to Austin, especially this cool like barbecue place that I went to. Oh my God, you guys know how to do barbecue.
Yes, Texas barbecue is unlike any other.
And tell me about Pass The Queso, because you are known as Emelie Pass The Queso. Well, you're not even known as Emelie. It's Pass The Queso.
No, I don't know how that happened, but I've always just, have always been Emelie, but then with Pass The Queso, after I decided to start that brand, everyone just calls me Pass The Queso. Like, even people who know me well. It's just like, you know my name. Why did you call me that? But what's even more fun is I have so many, like I'm in the States, but I have so many international clients. And I did not realize that in some places, and this is so stupid of me because it's like, right? It's kind of like, oh, this is very American of me to be like, oh, you guys aren't the same. But I didn't realize that a lot of folks are like, don't know what queso is. It's like, well, of course they don't because it's Spanish. And it's like, I'm like so close. Or they don't like, have never had it or they don't know how to say it. One of my friends who was in Australia, I had to she called it queso for months. That was when she talked about me, it was pasta queso.
You're like both. I'll go by either.
But whatever. So that's funny, but yeah. So
can you just confirm what queso is for people that are listening and might not know, darling?
Yes, queso is just melted cheese.
And it's quite orangey, isn't it? The one I've seen is pretty orangey, is that right?
It depends on the type of cheese. There are different types of queso. So there's yellow queso, there's white queso. It just depends on what it is.
I feel like we might need to add a recipe for queso to the show notes. You're going to have to hit me up with one, please, Emelie. I love that you are known as Pass The Queso because I feel like that kind of embodies you or epitomizes like whatever we want to say. But like you are such a standout person, Emelie, that everyone just wants to be your best friend. So I feel like Pass The Queso just totally embodies that you're like, fuck like using my own name. Fuck using something that's even related to my niche. I'm going with something totally random.
With cheese. Well, it has a story because I actually in all my about page I say I named this business after a restaurant, which kind of, but my family and I have been regulars at this Tex-Mex restaurant for over 2 decades. Like they've changed their name multiple times, but we've gone there to celebrate together, cry, sit together for 6 hours, just drink margaritas and talk about our problems. And that place has really become a second home for us. Or I can't remember who came up with the name, but a third place, where you've got where you live, where you work, and your third place is where it's just sort of like a community space. And so I just was like, I want my brand to be a third place for other people. And I want people that I work with to be able to write in a way that creates community and write and sounds like them. And all of these things also then creates a third place for their clients and students and just their community in general. And so there's actually a photo on my about page of me with Delphina, and she's the owner of Rodeo, which is the restaurant. It's been named like 3 other things. So it's like her and she's there and I'm like with her, and then she's got like this margarita flight in her hands. So the yeah, so it was so funny. I helped her with her website, and we've just always been really, really sort of close. So that's actually where the name came from, is actually a Tex-Mex restaurant.
But what about the Pass The Queso part? Is that because that's what you were seeing when you were at that restaurant?
Yeah, it's
What
just,
was it?
hey, pass the like a bowl of queso, just pass the queso.
I love it. I love it. I kind of went against, you kind of went against the grain of what people tell you should do. Is that kind of a theme, Emelie?
A little bit. This is a theme of my personality. It's causing some problems. But yeah, I will say it was not quite intentional. Like, I did intend to build. I mean, I've always been Emelie Sanders, and I've had different businesses and all of that. I've always just been Emelie Sanders. So I really genuinely thought like more, I mean, I still would consider myself to be a personal brand, but yeah, I didn't really intend to build that brand around Pass The Queso. It just sort of evolved that way. And I've just like really leaned into it. If I kind of go into something with an intent or like an outcome in mind, and my community or just different things are kind of redirecting it, I tend to just kind of lean in like, okay, that's happening for a reason. People are connecting with that for a reason. Like, who am I to say otherwise? So sure, let's ship it. So everyone's calling me Pass The Queso. So I just was like, okay, cool. I'm the head honcho of Pass The Queso. I don't need to be Emelie Sanders. Like, my goal is not to become the Emelie show.
I just think it absolutely makes you stand out, and I'm all about people being in their big deal energy and standing out.
I love that.
You do that. Just with that name.
Energy.
Because it stops the scroll, right? So, Emelie,
Yeah.
something that I love about you, and this is kind of your thing, is copy. Like, talk to us about copy. I know that so many people listening will be like, oh, I don't know where to get started with my copy. I feel like my messaging's off. Like, for someone that is listening and writing copy, writing emails, writing captions, writing scripts for podcasts or whatever, if that's what you do, if they're feeling stuck, what would you say to them? Imagine you're giving them a come to Jesus talk, Emelie.
Oh, a come to Jesus moment. Oh, good Lord. I'm from the South. I'm not sure you want one of those, but okay.
Come on, what would you say?
Okay, well, when it comes to copy, because a lot of people will come to me and say, like, I'm having problems with my copy. A lot of times, too, is I'm having a hard time finding my voice. And I'm like, girl, no, you do not. Usually, it actually comes down to, like, the messaging. And then also sometimes they're like, I have a messaging problem. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about messaging versus copy. So that's kind of the first thing I kind of run people through. So I'm surprised sometimes at how that's not widely known. So it's not like the messaging it's just the strategy behind what you're saying, and not strategy as in like a witty complicated thing, but it's kind of like where you've made decisions on what you're focusing on with your copy. And so kind of even if you think about like a brand designer, right? Before they design or create the brand, they come up with a strategy. And that's kind of the same thing with your messaging. So the messaging is just saying, hey, whenever we talk to someone, this is who we're talking to. Whenever we think about what they want, sure, they want this laundry list of things, but this is kind of the core of it. So your messaging is just kind of making those like very hard decisions and picking your focus points. And then whenever you're writing copy, it's almost prompted by your messaging. It's directed and it kept focused so that we don't kind of get all squirrely, which is so easy to do. So whenever someone's like really struggling with my copy, I'm usually kind of like, okay, well, in what way? You might say, oh, on this podcast, script writing, or oh, this blog post, or this email, And my first advice is usually like, well, determine what you're trying to say? Like, what's the end goal? Like, what's your one focus? Because what I usually find is people they're going too wide, and then it's overwhelming. So the first thing I do is like, okay, well, what's the intent? What's the purpose? and what's the focus of this piece of copy.
What would an example be of that, Emelie? What might someone be thinking that they want to focus on? Is it right, okay, in this piece of content, I want to get a reply? Is it that I want someone to book a call with me? Could you give us some examples
Oh,
of
you're
some of
talking
the
like
intentions?
CTAs. Yeah. Well, let me take a step back and kind of before that, it's like, what is it about? Like, I see what you're saying. It's kind of like, what do I want to get out of it? But I'm speaking, I guess, more to what is it about? So, like, let us take, for instance, a handful of days ago, we did a 2-day challenge. It was writing an offer promise. It was at the last, and folks came in, and it's like, okay, here's my offer. And it's like, the idea is, what a lot of people struggle with is, how do you take everything you know about your offer and how do you communicate all of its value and like something really short and punchy rather than, diarrhea at the mouth, you're fire-hosing people, or you're kind of just like not really sure what to say and what to leave out. And so when we were doing those, what I found was a lot of people wanted to be like, okay, well, here's the tool, here's the vehicle or the deliverable, like here's what I'm tangibly giving you. And then a lot of focus on the outcome of it and the benefits. And there may have been like 3+. And it's like, oh, well, when someone, let's think about, like, if we kind of go back to the design thing. Oh, well, this website's going to give them better fit client. And then they're going to get their time back. And then and it's this like laundry list of things. And so a lot of folks got the same advice where I was like, okay, pick one.
And then what would the next thing be?
So I depending on the content, like you're saying, are you looking for engagement? You're looking for a call? Like, of course, like you want to have a CT, like a CTA. I don't find that people struggle with the CTA as much. I think it's enough to just be like, hey, ask people to do one thing because people don't have enough brain calories to be like, okay, I'm going to pick a call and then I'm going to go look at your website and I'm going to follow you on LinkedIn. It's like, give them one. I think that's simple enough advice that most people kind of know. It's just, so I think that folks, I think we got that for the most part. It's mostly the focus on the actual copy.
Can I interject, Emelie? Because I love your CTAs. I feel like you have some of the best, like on your stuff, like when you're telling people what to do, you have some really good ideas on that. What would some of your quirkiest CTAs be?
When it comes to CTAs, like actual, like for talking like written, I mean, we've got some like buttons, but for like websites and stuff. But within emails, I find that hyperlinked text works best. I just made a LinkedIn post about this because it's just very like, we know what linked things do. And so what's really helpful is just sort of like you give it context. And then as far as like the actual linked copy go, I find it's better to hyperlink something to be more conversational that kind of like works within the body that you're already writing. So you totally can be like, sign up. You could totally be like, join here. You could totally be like, grab your spot. You could totally do that. I like to kind of tie them back into my copy though. Like if I think about this email that I sent out this morning, there's a part where I was pretending something. I made something up that was fake, something about angels. I don't know. And then I kind of referenced back to something that wasn't real. And then I was like, well, here's what's 500% real. And I kind of just like listed out some benefits or something. And then like later on down in the email, the CTA to join Standup Copy was, I'm 500% in, and that was linked, just kind of like calling back to that 500% reference that I made before. And so, and that's actually a humor technique. And like when we think about like, and I know humor is a totally different topic that we don't have to like dive.
I want to go into humor.
Well, because like the thing about humor is people sometimes are like, oh, well, your emails are funny, but it's like, I'm not really funny and I have something to say to that, but we'll table that. But a big thing about humor is like, humor it's supposed to tickle your brain. And it's supposed to connect, and it has other purposes beyond like making people laugh. So for instance, me with like a CTA, I find about a CTA that's sort of rooted in a humor strategy. Even though people reading it aren't going, haha, that's funny, I'm 500% in, their brain is connecting it to what they saw before. And my click-throughs on those are just much higher. So it's sort of like, I'm not writing that to make you laugh necessarily. Like it is lighthearted, but the purpose is it has a strategic place in there.
I feel like when I see humor, especially in your copy, Emelie, it kind of wakes me up. Because we're reading stuff all day and a lot of it is very vague and vanilla and boring as shit.
Yeah.
Yet when I see like your copy, it just does wake me up and it makes me want to keep reading.
It creates contrast. Yeah. And that's why, people talk about how do you stand out and how do you get like an edge in a space. And so many times I'm just like, it's humor. It's humor. And it's not like I'm not trying to make anyone into a comedic brand or change who anyone is, because everyone like has their own kind of funny. Like I would argue everyone is funny. There are different humor types. I have a free quiz on that that's like really helpful to identify that and how to like lean in.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Because yeah, we can do that. There are 4 humor types. And it really is how you stand out. So like whenever you just are playful and have fun and all of that, it's just so different from what everyone else is doing.
Can you talk to us more about that, Emelie? Because I know that is one of your headlines, isn't it? It's like use humor in your copy. Can you talk to us about that as an actual strategy, please?
Yeah. Are you referring to I talk about using humor to charm and disarm?
Yes.
Your way to prop in authority, that one? Yeah. Okay. I think that's relatively like newer one I've been putting out there to kind of see if it's been hitting, and it seems to have been hitting. But yeah, humor is just like, I actually had a blog post go live last week, I think, about the science behind humor and like even just like what our brains do and these different chemicals that are released. And humor is just such an easy way for people to connect with you. It just lowers that barrier to entry because it's like, this person is real. This person is fun. Like this person is like, we associate trust with people who make us laugh. There's a recent study that came out that 91% of consumers prefer brands, personal or, product brands, but that use humor. And it's just like, especially in kind of the business space where we think everything has to be very like starched pants, it's like it bringing that levity in it creates so much contrast. You just naturally stand out. So, I mean, you get more eyeballs on you. People are quicker to trust you. People also are quick to see you in a more leadership type position as well. And so it just, for all the right reasons, it's just such an amazing tool.
Wow. Where would people start? Where would people start with this, Emelie? Like I see a lot of kind of newbie coaches, especially from certain corporate backgrounds, whether they've been working in the healthcare system or whether they've been teachers, or from a particular like academic background, their identity is so hung up in writing in a certain way that when they try and write for their business, it's like, I can't do it. It's going to be really formal, but then that's foreign as shit and no one wants to read it. So imagine we've got that person and she's listening to this podcast and she's like, oh man, I really, really understand what Emelie's saying. Like, where the hell do I start? Like, what would be an easy way in, like a kind of little taste of bringing some humor into their copy? Like, how would you recommend that they start and do that?
Well, that kind of person is, I would say, you coming in, and if you're kind of like, I want to use humor, I think your first step is really, can we just like start taking a peek at your personality? And so like, let's just start there. So what I usually encourage folks to do that are kind of having a hard time with like writing is with personality is really what I would challenge them to do, is to, the next time you're writing something, let's say like an email, right? Because I find that that's kind of where we see the whole like, oh, you're sending me an email, this is boring as hell. Where that email needs to be conversational. Just, you need to shift your perspective to, this is a conversation. I'm sending this to a friend. And whenever you write, read it aloud. Does it sound weird? Does it sound like something you'd say? Like, one thing I say when people write is I'm like, does it feel chunky in your mouth? And everyone's like, ew. And I'm like, exactly. Does it chunky in your mouth? Because if it does, like, reword it. Like, and then also, instead of like writing very like formally, is I tell people to brain dump and use bullet points, because our brains see bullet points as like note taking. It's casual. It's no big deal. It's a draft. It's not official. So if we can kind of use what that triggers in our brain, just start with bullet points and just sort of like get it all out, and then go back through and like write it out and then read it aloud. And if anything feels like I wouldn't say that, just instead of retyping it, say like look at it and go, hi, I wouldn't say that. I would say, and then like talk it out. And that's really a muscle. Like people really just like, it's just about getting your reps in. That's all it is. And it'll start to come more naturally. And the thing is, since everyone is funny in their own way, like you are going to naturally see things come out, whether it's like a type of storytelling or, are you like a dad joke kind of person? Like there's just so many, like it's going to start kind of creeping out without you really realizing it. And at that point, whenever you're kind of like sort of, it comes naturally for you to write and with personality, then I'm like, okay, then I would invite you to be like, how can we be a little more strategic about that? And then at that point, obviously, I'm going to be like, hey, join Standup Copy if you like really want to take it more seriously. But that's my group program. But if you're not even ready for that, that's really no big deal. Take the free humor quiz. Like that's going to say like, because humor, there are essentially, we kind of can group people is like one of 4 different humor types because there's a spectrum of the content of your humor, like what you joke about, and then the delivery of it. And so if we kind of think about those like 4 quadrants with like, we've got an X and a Y axis, it's kind of like that's how those are kind of organized. So we've got like 4 main types. And then sometimes you have like a primary, secondary, whatever. But the quiz will help. Well, you just answer, I think it's like 10 questions and it's like, they're fun. They're a fun question. And then at the end, it kind of like tells you, it spits out like a little bit of a profile. And then I've made a video and then you have a whole web page with examples of like how you can use that and how like plays out things to lean into that come naturally to you. So that's a really great place to start too, even just to build that self-awareness of like, oh yeah, like I do that. And it's kind of like, I'm going to give myself permission to do that more because I'm already sort of doing it. And that's really what it is more than anything. I think it's funny with the quiz is no one's like, oh, I didn't know that about myself. It's more like self-revealing and like giving them a thumbs up to keep going. That's pretty much all it is. What's fun is everyone's like, I'm not really funny. And I'm like, no, take this quiz. They take it and they look at the result and they're like, oh my gosh, I actually do these things. And people do think these are funny. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's just that we traditionally think that comedy and humor is the same thing. And so we're thinking, oh, but I'm not like a look at me on a stage, kind of person. So like, I'm not funny. And it's like, no, it's not humor. That's comedy. And that's something totally different. So that's not something that, that's like when humor goes pro.
So you're saying, Emily, that even if you consider yourself to be an introvert, you can also definitely use humor as a strategy. I honestly love it when I see someone that comes across as being very introverted, but they've got a friggin' fantastic like wit about them. I love it.
That's the quick shot. That's definitely one of them because like they're kind of under the radar. They kind of keep to themselves, and then they kind of just got like a little jab, and you're like,
I love those.
Yeah.
So this is
the whole thing.
Thinking about like not just bringing humor into your copy, but into maybe your lead
brand
magnet as well. Yeah, I love
it's
this.
everything. That's everything. That's why like I use very heavy copy focus for sure. But a lot of my one-on-one clients, we work on more than just copy. A lot of it is like what I have the 3 cheeses is what I call it. So it's copy, creative, and campaigns. And so it is a lot. It's just brand building. That's, it's like, what are you saying? How are you saying it? How are you delivering it? Like, how are you communicating it? I mean, humor just like can seep into all of it.
Mm-hmm. Totally can. So in terms of people that are struggling with copy, they're struggling like getting their point across, Emily, what would your advice be on kind of building a practice or getting into a routine, or like what would you say would be a good thing to start actually doing? Would it be to send regular emails? Would it be to write your own captions? Like what would you tell them to do?
I honestly think social is kind of the hardest because you're pairing like a caption within content of a post of some sort. And that's just a little rough. I always encourage people to do emails because the thing about emails is it's casual. You can pick any sort of schedule. You can decide to do them weekly. You can do them every other week. You can, whatever floats your dress. I have definitely like changed the, regularity of mine the cadence there. For a long time now, I've been doing 3 a week, but that's also because it's like, that's what I do. But the thing about emails, that why I recommend emails is that, but then they can be long, they can be short, they can be structured with sections. There's just so much that you can do with them. There's no such thing as too short or long of an email either. So it's really just about getting your reps in. And from my perspective, what is the easiest way to get your reps in? And I gotta say it's emails. However, I will say, I mean, that's for like, on another hand, I'm kind of like, I love Threads. Like, obviously, I'm not over there anymore, but I think Threads is fantastic for very quickly just like sharing an idea. But the thing is, sometimes you can get really wrapped up in like, what was the engagement and the comments and the likes? It's not long enough to really communicate like an entire idea or thought. So I definitely would have to stick with emails, even though I just came up with.
So we're talking emails, sending out emails. We're talking about a blog maybe a couple of times a month. In terms of social media, Emelie, you're no longer on social media, which is very refreshing and
I
music
mean,
to
I
my ears.
am. This
Where
is
are you?
different.
Where are
I'm
you
on
on it?
LinkedIn.
Oh, I never consider LinkedIn to be social
I know
media.
you don't. It is. You should go look at my LinkedIn. You will be like, oh, this is social media.
I'm going to go on LinkedIn. I have a profile, but like I would say 90% of the people that I'm connected with are from my days when I worked in construction.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there you go. Yeah. I mean, I
How are you?
love it.
Tell us about LinkedIn.
I mean, like, what about it? In my head, it was very like, oh, this isn't a social media platform. It's a networking platform.
Were you thinking you had to get your starched pants on to go on LinkedIn?
Nope. Never. I'm in biker shorts right now. It's like, no, I will not put on search pants. But what's interesting though, and like, I think this is positive. It's like, okay, when you think about LinkedIn, what do you associate? And it's exactly what you just said. That's how we associate, right? Oh, it's like really professional and like, yada, yada, yada. But isn't that the best place to be? Isn't like go where you can naturally show up and create contrast. It's like you're just set up for success right out the get-go.
Yeah.
So so it's similar to whenever you like get in on a platform early, right? Like when Threads came out, I was like, I don't know what this is, but sign me up. And I got in real fast and I started talking crap real fast over there. And like it did well because I got in really early. It's that same sort of like you're getting in over there and in your natural state, you were already contrasting what the norm is over there. And it just makes it easier for people to find you, share you, like what you're doing, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, and the thing is interesting is like, this again goes back to the sort of the content strategy versus platform format, because so many people we think in platforms, but it's like, I can talk about the same things I talk about everywhere else. And the only thing I really have had to figure out, I'm just kind of figuring out is like at first the follow versus connect. What the hell? That's confusing. But I mean, besides like, okay, how do I optimize this profile? It's not all that different from things I've done before. Okay, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? Or which is, I don't play the algorithm game, but it's sort of like, well, what's the kind of format of content that's doing well over here? What do people like to see? What makes the most sense? And I mean, it just took a couple weeks to play it around. You kind of like figure it out and because you go like any other platform. But yeah, it's been a great experience. And I mean, I'm not like growing rapidly. I haven't made $1 million over there, but like it's doing pretty well. I have made a lot of connections that have sort of popped this Instagram algorithm bubble that I was in for a while, which I'm very, very happy about. I have a lot of people saying that that's something they're currently going through. It's like I'm sort of like in this like grouping of like, I like the people I'm talking to, but it's sort of like I'm just sort of like we're all just kind of circling the drain together. Like I don't know what's going on. And so it's nice to be able to go somewhere where it's like brand new faces left and right. Made a lot of great like connections and sort of like new LinkedIn friends and things on my calendar that wouldn't be there otherwise. So
Amazing. You're not the first person that I've spoken to recently who is loving things over on LinkedIn.
oh yeah.
And I bet that you will be a breath of fresh air over there. You with your biker pants.
Yes, exactly. That's the goal.
Totally. So with LinkedIn, Emelie, how often are you posting on there?
Every day, actually on Sunday, every Sunday, I write up and schedule my 7 posts for the week. It's so easy. I love it. It's so low lift. I do plan on, and listen, I mean, when I talk about like, if this was like not an audio platform, I'd be like, let me show you. But I mean, at this point, just text based, just because we've been moving and life has been really chaotic and there's just been a lot going on. And also, I will say, when I got kicked off Instagram, I'm a big video. I love video. YouTube is also something that I've been posting videos on YouTube and kind of figuring it out over there as well. Really like leaning into the creator side of my work and loving it. But one thing I want to notice, yeah, I got kicked off when I got kicked off Instagram. I really kind of got thrown off my video kind of cadence and like flow and all of that. And I totally miss it. And LinkedIn, not a lot of video, although there is an update where they're going to be basically getting like a feed, a video type feed. And I'm like, oh, I got to get on this very quickly. I did vertical video because like horizontal or landscape, whatever. The video has been like, if you're going to do video on LinkedIn, that's what you want to do because most of people are viewing it on their desktop. But at this point, things are kind of shifting. And I think it's a really good time to get in and do video in a big way. And so kind of my approach to what I was doing with Reels, I'm going to start doing over there as well. So I'll continue doing my, my daily like copy, text-based post, and sometimes with like an image or something, but I'm going to be getting back into video. I actually have, I guess I'll just share it here. I haven't shared it anywhere yet. Come on, I've got like got an unannounced like series idea. So, I mean, not like a total title, but I'm going to start doing these. Oh, okay. So my bathroom has what's called, I call it a poop room. I don't know what people call them. It's like, do you know those bathrooms where for some reason the toilet is in kind of like its own little room?
Yes, we have them in the UK.
It's very weird to me. It's like, I guess if someone can shower when someone's in there, I don't know. I don't prefer it, honestly. But anyway, I've got a poop room. And what I think about doing is a big part of my brand is like poop jokes and stuff. And I think this is hilarious. Maybe it's not. But you know how on YouTube creators, when they do the YouTube videos, like they have a very set way that their videos look, right? Like a certain lighting and the mic and then the decor. Like it's a very like, oh, this is a YouTube creator.
Yes. And the lighting is very like stark.
Yeah, I am going to take the door off of the poop room and I am going to make that into a studio. So you can barely tell, I think she's on the toilet, like sitting on the toilet. And then progressively, as I make these videos, I'm going to slowly decorate to like make it look like a creator studio in my bathroom.
Oh my goodness.
And but the content of the video is going to just be like stuff I normally talk about. Like I'm not even going to acknowledge the fact that I'm on a toilet with this like studio being kind of like built up slowly through these videos. And I don't know, I just think it'd be fun. And so I'm going to do it. It might not even land with anybody, but it's pretty funny.
I'm here for it. I'm going to be following. Emelie, what are your thoughts on, like, do you have to, this is probably a silly question for you, but do you feel like you got to filter the swears over on LinkedIn? Because I love dropping an F-bomb. Do you feel like you don't filter them or you don't love an F-bomb?
I don't filter them.
Okay.
I mean, a big part of, and like when I work with my clients and students, when we go through this brand voice guide or worksheet, it's more like explorative and to document. But some brands definitely do need to have a different tone of voice on different platforms sometimes. For the most part, like folks like you and me, I would say, and probably a lot of folks listening to this as well, is you are who you are regardless of the platform. And so it's most likely not going to be layered. So if that is how you would speak on Instagram, you need to be that way on LinkedIn as well.
Thanks for the permission slip, babes. I needed that. I once had someone, just for anyone that's listening who's worried about swearing, I once had someone comment on one of my videos and said, I would never ever work with a coach who could potentially drop a casual F-bomb into the conversation.
That's weird.
And I was
good
like,
for you.
I was like, well, thanks. But like, if you don't like swearing, I'm not the coach for you and you're not the client for me. Bye-bye. But I had that feeling of, doing something wrong. I did think like for like 3 seconds, I think, Emelie, oh my God, I shouldn't be swearing. Like,
it just makes you, it makes you double check, but you know what? You coming out from it going, oh wait, like that just reinforces what you already know.
Yeah. And I love that it's a filter. I think we should all have a filter. Like, I guess humor for you is that filter, isn't it? Because if people don't get your humor, then they're not going to be your ideal client.
They're
right?
not going to enjoy working with me. Yeah. That's also why I think so many things like I think so many things like challenges and things where people can sort of experience you in a little bit of a way, whether it's through content or anything else.
Would you be happy talking about, like, because you mentioned a couple of times that you got kicked off Instagram? Would you be happy talking to us about that? Just as kind of an awareness piece for our listeners here, like what can happen, like, because we hear about it, don't we? Like people saying, don't just have a business on Instagram, have an email list, like, but you are a real life, real case scenario of that actually happening. Could you tell us more about that if you're comfortable?
Yeah, more than what I could talk about anything forever. Yeah, I actually thought it was really interesting because whenever I got kicked off, a big thing is I saw people kind of using me as an example. Me like, see, this is why you gotta have an email list. And I'm like, bitch, I have an email list. I think most of us have email lists. So it's like, and calm down. I know you want to sell your done for you, email, whatever, but chill out.
People doing that, using you as an example.
Yes. Yeah, so it's like, girl, calm down. And so, yeah, it's like, having, I don't think the lesson is don't build your business on Instagram, have a blog, don't build your business on Instagram, have an email list. Like, it's not about that. I definitely am a firm believer in obviously emails and like very important to have something that you quote unquote own. However, I think the bigger message here is if you look at what happened, it was on day one of my enrollment for Standup Copy, this last round. We're currently enrolling now, but it was the previous time. And basically everything kind of like went dark. Like my biggest source of leads, engagement at that point, like I do make sales from my emails, but the kind of engagement and behavior that I've sort of played into and trained, I don't like the word train, but I'm not really sure what other word to use in this, but with my community is that you receive info via email, we kind of like chit chat back and forth, but really a lot of the decisions are made via DMs because we can easily voice message. And how easy is that, right? So I've sort of set this pattern of engage, conversations, hang out, here are my emails, blah, 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 blah. But let's go make some firm, hard decisions and talk it out in the DMs. So for me, losing Instagram was sort of like unplugging that final step. Was that sort of, so a lot of people were kind of like, I don't really know what to do with this point. And so right now I'm kind of in the season of changing that behavioral pattern, which takes some time. And it's a different conversation we could totally talk about with that sales process. But whenever I sort of like pulled the plug, whenever they sort of pulled the plug, I should say, a lot of like the conversational moments were just completely missing from my launch. And so what happened though was I was, a little bit freaking out a little bit, but the biggest thing I noticed was my community carried that launch. I was not on a platform, but there were daily posts going up on threads, plugging my platform, telling people what had happened to me, people keeping other people updated. I have received so many new contact from that because people were like, I keep seeing this free queso thing. Don't know who this is. Don't know what the story is. I booked so many podcast interviews from it as well. But the thing is, none of that was because of me. All of that happened because of a community that I have been building for the last year, which isn't even that long of a time if you think about it. And so the bigger picture here for me is not, you need an email list. The bigger picture for me is, how did she build this community? And it was not by being clear, starch business pants Emelie. This community was not built with clear. This community was built with conversations, humor, like a good time, like, showing up like that and like giving value, like all of these things. Like I have a whole thing written about what building it, like how I built this community, but that's the lesson to be learned from this because, say they unplugged it. I didn't do any of that, but I had a giant ass email list. Like, cool. It's just like, there's no heart. There's no story. There's no, oh my gosh, this was awful. There's no, we missed you. There's none of that. It's just, oh, that sucks. I'm glad you have a list. So for me, that's sort of the bigger takeaway. And that's like, it even just strengthens my POV on the whole, like, clear over clever is just bullshit. It's just absolute bullshit. It's lazy. Like, everyone wants to talk about your copy, your brand, everything should be clear, clear, clear. And it's like, but that's not how you connect with people. That's not how you build relationships. That's not how you stand out. That's not how you do anything except step one of good content, good copy, good whatever. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, congratulations, you did step one, bare minimum. Good for you. I just like, I don't understand the obsession with that phrase.
I know I think there's some very lazy people that are pushing that, saying that that is the way you should do things. And if you do it any other way, then like, what's the point? But in actual fact,
It's oversimplified, I think, is
Yeah.
probably the best way to explain that.
So Emelie, when you were kicked off Instagram, did you have any idea it was going to happen, or was it literally instant?
Oh, I didn't know it was. That's a hard one to answer. I can't fully give too much information right now, just because of the nature of why I was kicked off. I can share that I was kicked off. I was falsely accused of infringing on someone's personal intellectual property, and it's just someone who has been following me for a while, who just has a bug upper button, just does not like me, and so I had just reporting every single post I'd made for a really long time, and it was really hard to address each of those posts with Meta because their customer service and all of that. It's garbage. It's a dumpster fire. It doesn't exist really. And so I essentially had like all of these flags against my account, right? You kind of get kind of like, oh, you posted something, you violated someone's right. And I was like, appeal, and it was never heard. And so after a couple of those, it flagged my account and their system took it down. And so I appealed the whole account. We did this whole thing. I've paid out the butt to like have this fixed and addressed from a legal perspective. But and then as soon as I would close, that account was closed down, I actually opened another, and then that person then found that account and started like doing the same thing. And so it just kind of was this like endless cycle. And so, yeah, I haven't had that issue elsewhere, but also other platforms have better support than Meta. So, yeah.
I have one word, and that word is karma. That person that has done that to you.
Yes, it's interesting. One thing I've noted is like, this person spends more time chasing down and reporting my content than making her own. She doesn't make any content. So it's just sort of like, girl,
I had this, that's some cruel people. Like, I don't want this to put anyone off doing whatever they want on Instagram, but there's just some people out there who clearly have nothing better to do with their time. I had a Facebook ad up recently, and this man came on there and basically said that what I was seeing in my Facebook ad was BS. He wanted me to prove that what I was seeing was true. It's that I'd had a 10K month and got fully booked with 18 clients, which I did. And then he said, and by the way, I have copyrighted the hashtag fully booked coach, so please refrain from using it. I was like, oh my God. First of all, I'm not going to prove myself to you. And secondly, who the hell does that with a hashtag? Who the hell trademarks a hashtag? And
can that be done? I don't actually know the answer to
yeah, it can.
A hashtag?
Yeah, he trademarked a hashtag. And who polices the fucking hashtag?
That's interesting. You definitely have more money than time or something. I'm not really sure what's going on there. But yeah, I think below that is sort of like, it's almost like a power trip. It's like you single-handedly took out a person's main source of lead. It's like, if you think about it from like a person to person, it's sort of like, could you face someone? And it's like, this is gonna sound so dramatic, but it's like, could you face someone like me? It's like, I'm a single mom with 4 dependents. Could you face that person in real life and say, you know what? I don't want you to have any more business or any more money because I'm angry at you. And I do not care that these children might be at risk for, you know what I'm saying? Like, great, did that actually happen? No. Did we have a large financial dip that month? Yes. Have we recovered? Yes, we're fine. But just the heart behind it and the utter lack of humanity on that I think being behind screens, it's really easy to do that as well. So it's like, okay, I do empathize with like the like your ability to kind of like compartmentalize it away as, you're not really a person, but you just have these very large feelings. But it blows me away if I think about it a little bit too much. So I just don't.
It blows me away. I don't know how
Mhm.
people like that sleep at night. I honestly don't.
Yeah, I think it's kind of sad more than anything because that feeling that drove you was so overwhelming to you, and it's like, where did that come from? What is that trying to fill? What is missing in your life that? So if anything, it's just kind of like sad.
And I
Yeah.
feel like for people that see other women as competition, it's like they're gonna
Oh yeah,
be
that's wild to me.
they're gonna eat themselves up every friggin' minute of every day because there's an infinite amount of people we could see it's competition, right? But where's
Mhm.
that gonna get us?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 students right now in Standup Copy. They are messaging and copy people, and it's like, it's just like we support each other. I'm doing a whole list swap with another copywriter I know. It's like, we're not, I mean, sure, I think it is healthy to acknowledge competition and to kind of know, like, but I find that if I'm thinking from a business perspective, my biggest competition is not actually usually other copywriters. They're actually people who do nothing like I do. There are people who obviously can't be naming them right now. Who's that? It's like there are people that I'm like, they are my competition because they do this. And my ideal client thinks that can sort of like
Move them forward.
fulfill yeah. So usually your competition is not actually like people who do what you do. It's usually like a lack of action or someone they think is, gonna fix their boo boo. And so that's really interesting. But yeah,
I feel like
I'm down to like be a girl's girl, like honestly, full stop. That's all we gotta say.
yeah, one of my very good friends and business partner Cassie says something like a rising tide lifts all boats. So
That's
be
what my
that
mom
tide.
says.
Does she?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, my mom is anytime anyone does my mom's such like a girl's girl, but like from a different generation, she's so like it's so funny because she's just like, I just don't understand. A rising tide, there's all boats. And I'm like, Pen. Those kind of funny. So yeah,
Maybe
what she is working.
maybe we need a society, Emily, of women who were like into that as well.
Yeah,
We-
yeah.
We'll bring us all together.
I mean,
And
we should trademark the hashtag such be the tide. Be the tide.
I'm on it. I'm on it after this
And a
call.
man cannot use it.
And you can spend all your time to listen it because you've got fuck all else better to do.
Yes, correct. I have nothing else to do.
Before we finish, Emily, like we could talk for hours.
Definitely.
I love to ask my podcast guests for a book recommendation. Could you
Oh
please,
God.
could you please or are you in the depths of reading kids' books with your children?
Oh no, no. Oh man, because here's the book recommendation. Because I'm okay. I have to say, at one time I would have said Profit First, honestly. But Emily Nutley joined my stand-up copy group, and I'm sort of kind of like, I think there's a better way. And so I'm like, I don't know. But the book that I have read, I never reread books. The book I've read 6 times is called Company of One. Are you familiar with Company of One?
I'm not. And you know what, Emily? I have a lot of guests on my podcast who give the same book. So I'm super fucking excited that you gave a new book that no one else has recommended.
Well, new. So the author is Paul Jarvis, and it's interesting because I feel like this is somehow on brand for me. Is like the cover is like a school of fish, and they're kind of like, I think they're blue or black, and then there's like a fish that's kind of ahead of them, and he's red. And just that stark contrast, I think, is really strong. But the concept is, and I love this. It's we could summarize it in like, don't be too big for your britches sort of thing. But the whole thing is build a business that's as big as you need it to be. A lot of people go into entrepreneurship and they're like, oh, I'm going to be the next Gary Vee. I'm going to be the next this, but it's sort of like, what does your business need to look like to fulfill the things that you want from life, and then like, how can you do that in the most like lean, sustainable sort of way? And what I really like about the book is like some books tend to be very like either teaching you a school of thought or opposite, which is very like tactical. And I love this because he teaches it's both. And so it's sort of this like mindset. And so I find myself often asking, like, am I like, of course, it's not just company of one because it's more than just me, but like a company of one mindset is kind of like, I ask myself all the time. It's like, okay, is this growth for growth's sake? Or is this growth that benefits like where I want my business to be for where I want my life to be? And so it's just like a really refreshing take. And it's just so, it's an easy read, but it's also like kind of makes you like think deeper about things. And
I need to get
it's
that.
fantastic. And he also narrates it as well. So like I think I've also listened to it a couple of times on top of that. It's a fantastic book.
I'm gonna get it and I'm
When
gonna
was it
order
made?
it tonight. I'm also gonna put it will be in the show notes, and I will
Mhm.
pop a link to it in my Amazon shop because this girl has an Amazon shop as well.
Oh,
So I'll put it in there. Do you have any
it.
other recommendations, darling, for books?
No, but I have
Okay.
a really good podcast recommendation. Is that allowed? It's not business. It's not business.
Of course
It's not business. Okay, it's not business, but I'm going to go ahead and just say that it counts because it's funny. So there's a podcast called Well, I Laughed. And I found them on their very first episode on Instagram. And I was like, this is interesting. And I'm a big audiobook podcast person, and I'm strictly like nonfiction, educational, blah, 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 blah. I'm very like, I'm not a laid back, chill person. Let's just say that. Oh, but no, I am not. I said, girl, I'm an eldest daughter. I am uptight as hell. But this podcast is so interesting. There's a host. I'm having a giant brain right now. The two hosts, Maya and whatever, these kind of names. But they decide on a theme, and then they take a turn sharing a story that's related to it. And it's not just like, oh yeah, the other day I was walking down the street. It's usually like historical, or it's like cultural, or there's just like big storytelling, and they're kind of long. They're like an hour long, but good. And they also have just like this sort of like banter between them. So anyway, one episode will be like Grant, that's his name. Grant will tell the story, and it's related to the theme. And then the next episode, she'll tell it, but they don't tell each other what the stories are. And so you're getting like their real life, reaction to hearing this story, and then your own, and then their like little dialogue in between. And it is the most entertaining podcast I have ever. It's so low production too, but like so good. I think they just hit like a year recently, and they're just doing so well. And it is amazing. I often find myself like wishing that I had a buddy that listened to this podcast so I could be like, oh my God, we have to talk about this. And then the way they interpret these themes, I'm sorry, I'm like, let me just take over your podcast talking about whatever I want.
We're here for it.
It's so good. You've got to give it a listen.
I will give it a listen. I'm currently on the lookout for a new podcast to get into. Otherwise, because I think
to listen or to guest on.
To listen and to
listen.
both listen and guest. Because otherwise, I think sometimes you need a break from business stuff, right? Because it can just be like too much of an overload and too many people telling you what to do. So just something lighthearted that's going to make me laugh. I'm all for it. What's it called again, Emelie?
It's called Well, I Laughed.
Well, I Laughed. Right.
Yes. So that one's good. I will have to say another one that I find that's very interesting is, have you ever watched Love is Blind?
I know of it, but I've never actually watched an episode. Am I missing out?
I would say I don't watch TV or movies. I'm just very cannot be bothered. I saw it at movie theaters. I just cannot be bothered. I don't care. Love is Blind is the trash TV that has a grip on me and has from like day one, like season 1, episode 1. I just like can't get enough. But what's crazy is 2 of the participants on the podcast, they created a podcast called Out of the Pods. And these 2 gals, they like watch the different seasons and everything. And then their podcast is sort of like talking about it from the perspective of someone who's been on the show and experienced all these different things. And it feels like gossip, but the thing is, it's not really, because all of this happened publicly anyway. And it's totally the public's business. It's so good.
So I need to watch Love is Blind, and I need to listen to that podcast, and I need to read that book. I mean, I'll be busy for the next month
to do.
And then I'm going to come back to you, and then we can like record another episode.
We could do a recap episode. Okay, so for the first half, we're talking about this book, and then the other half, we're talking about this trashy podcast.
Maybe it can be like a bonus episode.
People are going to be like, what in God's name is this? But, you know, watch it be like your most downloaded one. You're like, what the hell?
I feel like we could have, Emily, like our own like splinter podcast where we just talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about.
Yeah. Listen, if I did not have 4 crotch goblins to tend to and have more time, a podcast is so on my radar. I could chat about everything and anything.
And I just love the way there's just something about you that just, you're my kind of person. The way you phrase things, you are so fucking funny. And we need more of that in our lives, don't we?
Yeah, we definitely need more fun. And also just
We
like more
do.
people that we can, like spending more time with the people that we connect with as well. And I think that's a kind of contributes back to that bigger conversation we were having before about like, you know, like you talk about cursing and it's like, it just really reveals who is and isn't the right person for me. And so I definitely think there's something to be said for like showing up as like who you are. I mean, we all know this. We all know this. Just do the do. That's what I'm always telling people. There's so many things that we know. You're asking me these questions. I'm giving you the answers you already know. Go do the do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go do the do, everyone.
Emily, before we finish, our listeners need to know where the hell they can find you. Obviously, it's LinkedIn, baby, but clearly you will have a website. What have you got going on? You've got Standup Copy enrolling pretty much now. Is that right?
I don't know when this podcast goes live, but
It's coming out next week.
Okay, yeah. We start next week, but depending if you got ants in your pants and you want to join, maybe we'll see. But yeah, so I recently just had a little zhuzh to my website done with my new brand photos. I had a brand shoot whenever I got this chips and queso tattooed on my hands. That was a blast. And so passthecase.com, that's where I live on the internet. But you can go to passthecase.com/subscribe and join my email list, the Copy Cantina. And that's where you're going to learn how to become a faster copywriter for your brand by knowing what to say and how to say it. And that's what all of those emails are about. And then Standup Copy, that's the group program that we've kind of like talked about. It's my sales copy group program. And really from the perspective of like, we were talking about this entire time of using humor and leaning into that. It's like, how can you be clear and clever? And so you go in, you write all the copy assets you need for your offer, come out the other end with sales copy that's going to convert better than your last launch and be a blast to get through as well. And I run that 3 times a year. And that's pretty much that's my big boy besides my one-on-ones. That's the thing.
So for anyone that isn't listening as this goes live, when will you be running the next rounds of Standup Copy? Do you know that at the moment?
Yeah, I believe the next cohort starts on January 7th, early January.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact date, but early January is the next round. And then you can go to the waitlist too from my site or what have you. But there, and then I'm on LinkedIn. You have to look up, I'm sorry, but you have to type in Emelie Sanders. But you could type actually in Pass The Queso.
And it's
a company page.
It's Emily which is spelled Emelie. Or you might want to see it in your Texas drawl, darling. Because everyone thinks when I say E, I'm actually saying A. Is there even a difference?
Yes.
Thanks for that. Thanks.
I got you.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I love you loads and I will speak to you soon. Thanks, darling.
Bye.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you listen and thank you so much for tuning in. Come and say hello to me on Instagram @_Leansia_. Head to leansia.com if you want the show notes. And if you are ready to build your Rockstar coaching business sooner rather than later, come under my wing, darling. Just drop me a DM and we will rendezvous.